William the Conqueror was a famous king who took over England in 1066, but his death was far from glorious. Let's go back to the summer of 1087. William, even though he was getting old, was still fighting battles. He was in France, attacking a town called Mantes. During the battle, his horse tripped, and William got badly hurt when he hit the front of his saddle. This injury started a chain of painful events. Medical care wasn't great back then. William's injury didn't heal well, and he got sicker over time. They took him to a place called St. Gervais in Rouen to try to help him, but he kept getting worse. William's body started to swell because of his injury, and when he finally died, he left behind a messy family who were all fighting over their inheritance and the throne. They were so busy arguing that they kind of forgot to bury their father. Actually, it's more like they ignored burying him because they all hated him. He was pretty much a jerk. The church finally stepped in and arranged to send his body to France to be buried according to William's wishes. By then, his body had been sitting around for over a week. When they tried to lower him into the tomb at the church, he didn't fit because he was so bloated from decomposing. They forced his body into the tomb, and it actually burst open, causing a horrible smell that filled the church. It was a shocking and undignified end for such a powerful king. He's still buried in that spot in a tomb at the Church of Saint Etienne in Caen, France. Hopefully, the smell is gone by now. Hypatia was a renowned philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician in ancient Alexandria, Egypt. She lived during a time when religious and political tensions were extremely high, and her work and teachings were highly respected across the Mediterranean world. Hypatia's tragic death occurred in 415 AD, a period marked by the decline of the Roman Empire and the rise of religious fervor. She was a prominent figure in the intellectual community, often engaging in discussions and debates with people of various beliefs. But not everyone was a fan, especially the religious folks who thought she was a bit too cozy with pagan ideas. You know how it is, haters gonna hate. Now, there was this guy, Cyril, the Patriarch of Alexandria, who saw Hypatia as a major threat to his rise to power. Why? Because she was tight with Orestes, the Roman governor. Cyril wanted to be the top dog, and Hypatia was like the really cool teacher everyone loved, but who didn't fit his religious vibe. In March of 415 AD, a mob of Christian zealots, whipped into a frenzy by religious leaders, brutally murdered Hypatia. They dragged her from her chariot through the streets of Alexandria to a church. Then things took a dark turn. They stripped her, beat her with roofing tiles, seriously. Who does that? And continued hitting her until she was a bloody mess. But they didn't stop there. To ensure their gruesome act was unforgettable, they dismembered her while she was still alive. Imagine the horror of being torn apart piece by piece. And if that wasn't enough, they burned her remains to ashes, leaving nothing but a horrifying memory. This brutal murder wasn't just a tragedy for Hypatia. It marked the end of an era where reason and science were celebrated. After this, the world took a nosedive into a period of less thinking and more shouting. In the annals of Japanese history, few figures are as shrouded in mystery and myth as Ishikawa Goemon. This notorious outlaw of the late 1500s lived during a tumultuous era in feudal Japan, a time when samurais and ninjas roamed the land, and powerful warlords fought for dominance. Rising from obscurity, Goemon became a folk hero, a Japanese Robin Hood who stole from the rich and shared his spoils with the poor. His story, immortalized in anime, movies, and video games, is a blend of fact and fiction, making it difficult to separate truth from legend. Born in a small village, Goemon's early life is the subject of much speculation. Some say he was a samurai, a master of the katana with unparalleled skill in combat. Others claim he was a ninja, trained in the art of stealth and espionage. Regardless of his origins, Goemon's exploits quickly made him a legend. He targeted corrupt officials and wealthy merchants, redistributing their wealth to the destitute. His daring heists and escapes became the stuff of legend, and the common people saw him as a symbol of hope and resistance against tyranny. Goemon's path to infamy was paved with personal tragedy. Under the rule of Hideyoshi Toyotomi, one of Japan's three great unifiers, the country was in a constant state of warfare. During one of Toyotomi's brutal conquests, Goemon's wife was killed, fueling his desire for revenge. Some say this loss drove him to the brink of madness, while others believe he simply saw Toyotomi as an unjust ruler who needed to be overthrown. Whatever the reason, Goemon's resolve to assassinate the powerful warlord was unwavering. On a warm summer night in 1594, Goemon made his move. Armed with a razor-sharp blade and a heart full of vengeance, he infiltrated Fushimi Castle, Toyotomi's newly constructed retirement palace. With the stealth of a shadow, he navigated the castle's corridors, reaching Toyotomi's sleeping quarters. But fate had other plans. As he crept closer to his target, Goemon accidentally knocked over a bell, alerting the guards. In an instant, he was surrounded and captured. Toyotomi's wrath was swift and merciless. Rather than granting Goemon the swift death of a samurai, he sentenced him to a gruesome execution, death by boiling. But the cruelty didn't end there. As a further punishment, Goemon's young son was also condemned to share his fate. On the day of the execution, a massive crowd gathered in front of the Nanzenji temple in Kyoto to witness the spectacle. Goemon and his son were placed in a large iron cauldron filled with water. As the fire beneath the cauldron roared to life, the water began to boil. Desperate to save his child, Goemon lifted his son above his head, shielding him from the rising steam. The crowd watched in horror as the outlaw struggled to keep his son safe. From here, the story diverges into two versions, each more heart-wrenching than the last. The first version, as Goemon held his son above the boiling water, the onlookers, unable to bear the sight of such cruelty, rushed forward to save the boy. Despite the pain, Goemon managed to smile, knowing his son would live, even as he succumbed to the boiling water. He died with the peace of knowing his child was in safe hands. The second version, in this darker account, Goemon's pleas for help went unanswered. Realizing that no one would save his son, he made a heartbreaking decision. With a final, defiant act, he plunged his child into the boiling water, ending his suffering quickly. Holding his son's lifeless body above his head, Goemon glared at the crowd, a silent condemnation of their inaction. He died standing, a symbol of defiance and despair, his body finally collapsing into the boiling cauldron. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more awesome content. Got thoughts or questions? Drop them in the comments below. I love hearing from you.